Okay, we have a motion and a second on our agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Before we get to JD, just a quick update on public health. She's not scheduled to be here today, but there's been a flurry of activity, and just to bring you up to date on numbers, in October, as of through yesterday, they have processed 230 positive cases, and the tracing that goes along with that. In the previous 7 months combined, we had 211 cases. So they're working a person short and working 24/7. So thank you to public health. All right, JD, I think we're ready.
Good morning. It's a fine morning in Page County. Of course, we were reminded that winter is coming yesterday, Sunday evening. So, but not yet. Yesterday we had snow plows out on the pavements, but it melted by noon. We didn't put down much material and didn't get any calls that I know of. The blade operators are burning brush yesterday and today from cutting done last winter. I would anticipate them back on the roads tomorrow and the rest of the week. You know, with weather more seasonable, which I hear the forecast is this week or the remainder of the week and next week, we'll go back to our normal activities, ditching, laying some more pipe. Now that it's a little moisture to it, blading, mowing, and cleaning up around the bridges. We did winterize the spray patcher, and there's no oil in our big storage tank. So we're done with that for the season. Our spare motor grader number 5 is in for service. That is part of the regular route during the winter. We have an additional motor grader during the winter operations. Minor issues with the trucks. Yesterday, a light issue on 55 and flat tires on another rig that weren't that way last Friday. We still have tire checks to do on the motor graders. Mounting the side mower, the boom, the mower on the arm, on the cat Challenger tractor. Putting in a rebuilt transmission and pickup 36 that belongs to the engineer's office. And because we're done with the spray patcher, of course, then our chip bin has been emptied, and so I'll bring in some more salt for the winter. As is normal right now, we're continuing to work on our EWP weir repair projects, sites 2 and 4, both on the middle Tark, the largest Tarkio river in the county. They were placing riprap yesterday in the bottom and on the banks on site 2. The plan last week was to get both sites 2 and 4 completed with the riprap and grout Thursday and Friday of this week. That's probably slipped a couple days, but weather next week looks suitable for grout. And that'd be both the big sites south of 2, and then they're starting to strip on site 10, which is on 130th Street and one of the Tarkios. The base stabilization contractor, Manats, out of Brooklyn, is in. They placed rock on the M44 F Avenue between J52 and North Pearl. There should be grinded in starting today and this week. Then we'll move, so 2 weeks from now, we should be on J55, so I'll be continuing to publicize that project. The rest of the items of the update are also on the agenda. I do have a road use tax chart, revenue chart. Down at the bottom, it talks about how this compares to the previous 2 years. You know, this is road use tax monies brought in as of October. And, you know, as the chart portrays, it varies month to month. So really, only the ending number really matters, and we've been meeting that last year, and I would anticipate this year again. Questions for the update, or questions for me based on the update, or other comments?
I don't have any, John.
If none, then I'll direct your attention to the contract. Last Tuesday, the DOT received bids. We had a federal aid bridge on J20 called the F20 bridge. It's a single span bridge. It'll be 110 foot long, 30 foot wide. And it was tied to a smaller, more complicated bridge in Fremont County on Manti Road. And they were let together. We're the contracting authority, the lead county in this project with Fremont County, even though they had the more expensive project. That's why they were listed first. And that's why the contract ID is a Fremont County contract ID number, but the contract is with us. AM Coron was low. The contract amount was $1,974,343.59. That is both bridges. So that's the contract. Now, it is also split into divisions, or here they call them sections. The 67 by 30 foot bridge in Fremont County is $1,245,346.14. And the one we're most interested in, the Page County Bridge, is $728,997.45. That's about 4%. That's 4% higher than our estimate of $700,000. I would,
So why is there a shorter bridge cost so much more?
it has flume on it. I don't know. It's more complicated than ours.
Quite a bit more complicated than $500,000.
I'm just glad, I'm glad not to be there. I'd entertain a motion to approve that, or is there any more discussion?
How many bids did you have?
Two.
Two.
And this Coron was substantially lower than the other.
And they did the work on the Washington Street Bridge, correct?
They've done bridges for us before. They're working on weirs now. They'll probably still have equipment in the county come spring.
Well, I'd make a motion to award the contract to AM Coron on the J20 bridge.
I'll second that motion. And that's in the amount of $728,997.45.
That's per page, but the contract is
it's
$1,000,009.
Okay.
Which is umbrella over the two projects.
Okay, gotcha.
You know, they're gonna use their money, they're gonna do their inspection, we'll use our money, our inspectors, but it was a function of the type of federal money this is, that they're bundled together.
Okay, sorry about that.
Could I also put in that motion to, allow JD authority to?
Well,
Probably-
we have it as a separate thing.
We do? All right.
It's on the agenda as a
It's
separate.
on this project though, right?
Yes, it's for this contract.
All right.
So we have a motion and a second on the allocation of funds for these two bridges. Any other discussion? Hearing none, let's take a roll call, please, Melissa.
Armstrong,
Yes.
Hersberg,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
motion carried 3-0.
Okay, now,
Now the resolution to, after the, award of the contract by the board to authorize me to digitally sign this online, the way we're doing it these days. That's now.
Okay, I'll make that motion to give JD the authority to, electronically sign this contract. I'll second that motion.
okay, any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay,
Melissa,
thank you.
do you have everything you need, Melissa?
JD, the only thing is, I don't think we'll meet next week, but in 2 weeks, would you be able to have some information relative to Cherokee Ridge, some possible numbers?
Cost information?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. If that gives you enough time, that'd be great. All
Okay,
right,
thank you.
you bet, thank you. All right, we're ahead of schedule. So why don't we discuss the tax abatement requested by the city of Shenandoah? Somebody, Corey, can you bring up that parcel real quick, please? Okay, thank you, sir. So the city of Shenandoah has deed to that property. And I'm not sure if they're gonna, does anybody know if they're gonna try to rehab that or if they're going to raise it?
I can't remember reading about that. I don't know.
But it is in the hands, or the deeds in the hands of the city of Shenandoah. So typically, standard operating procedure is to abate those taxes, let them do their magic and get it back on the tax rolls. Any questions? Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the tax abatement request by City of Shenandoah on that particular plat.
Second that motion.
Okay, Armstrong with a motion, Hersberg with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
motion carries. Thank you, Corey, for bringing that up. Melissa, we are about 10 minutes, 15 minutes early. Can we hear your report on, well, first of all, let's kind of do this 9:35. Let's talk about
Next week.
next week on election day. Is there any known business other than elections that
When do we have to do the
canvass?
canvass? How soon can we do the canvass after the election? Not until 7 days, okay.
Tuesday at noon, is that, okay. John, do you know of any business that we need to meet?
I do not.
Okay. Well, I think it's pretty normal on general election day that we do not meet.
Yeah.
So, unless something were to come up, I'd entertain a motion that, as needed, if we have to call a meeting, we could call one, but.
I'd make a motion, not to meet on election day, November 3rd.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion is second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. So Melissa, do you have time for your update on the satellite voting?
Yep, I just wanted to give a quick update on the general election. So as of yesterday, at the end of the day, we have had 3,702 people already vote, and we've received back 3,170, which is a little over 85% turnout so far regarding our absentees. So those are really good numbers. We're really excited about that. We're hoping before the election we'll break 4,000 in the office, which would set a record. We already have set a record, but we'd like to hit 4,000 just to really set that record high. So we're excited about that. We've had a good response, had a lot of people come in, and this Thursday will be the first time we're going to do satellite voting in Shenandoah. So we will have a satellite voting center open from 11 to 5 on Thursday, and we will have every precinct available, so anybody can choose to come in and vote at. It's going to be at the VA building on 615 Northwest Road, and with that, we're going to give everybody the opportunity. They can come register. It is past pre-registration deadline, so they will need to follow election day registration guidelines. However, for that, but they can come in and register. They can drop off a ballot if they've already voted and don't want to put it in the mail, which we've had a lot of people concerned about the mail this year. So we thought that that would be a nice addition for people over in Shenandoah and the surrounding area as well. And then they can choose to vote or they can curbside vote. We also will have curbside voting. So if anybody's in quarantine or has been ill with COVID, that they can choose to vote curbside as well. So lots of different options over there
Is
Thursday.
that going to be in the conference room?
Yes, they'll vote in the conference room there. So we're excited about that, and hopefully we'll have some record-breaking numbers for the election, which will be great.
Melissa, how many registered voters are there as of yesterday in the county?
Oh, I don't have that number right in front of me. I don't have the exact number.
Okay.
I can get you that. I looked at it yesterday, but to know the exact.
Too many numbers in a short span of time. So, well, congratulations.
And then on election day, polls will of course still be open. We've had a lot of questions about that too. So polls will still be open on election day from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So, and we did combine, so anybody that votes in the courthouse in the past, all precincts in Clarinda will be at the library. And then in Shenandoah, anybody who's voted over there in the past at the Shenandoah Historical Society or at the police station, at the Bricker Room. Instead, everybody's going to vote at the Historical Society this year over there. And then Essex will still have their precinct as well. So still a lot of options.
And then probably should be fair in saying that with the large turnout, the expectation on returns might be dampened a little bit. I know a lot of people always expect to have all the results by 10 o'clock at night. Polls close at 9. So what's your best guess at this point? Is it likely that we won't have a report till Wednesday?
We're hoping we'll be able to get one Tuesday night.
Okay.
But, with write-ins and things like that, that will take a little bit longer. So we are going to disperse out our office into the different areas too, so that we're there to assist those precinct election officials with helping, just to kind of help them through that process, because sometimes that can be a little challenging, and just so that way then somebody's there to answer any questions too they have, so they don't have to call in. So But we're hoping we'll be able to get everything out. And with our new machines too, we print those tapes too, so that sometimes makes it go a little quicker and easier. We have a training in here first thing tomorrow morning, so we're kind of trying to target some of those things that we think might be questions, along with election security and integrity and those types of issues as well. So.
Okay, thank you. Hey, Corey, would you mind taking the microphone and explaining the OCIO Chief Information Memorandum of Understanding, please?
Yeah, this is a 22-page document from Chief Information Officer of the state. And it's regarding equipment that we already have and use. They're just catching up on getting their paperwork out. We've had it for close to 2 years probably. It's intrusion detection and FireEye that's installed on the computers. It's software that alerts the state if they see something, they monitor it. They provide it to us for free through grants, and it's protection for them and for us. But they're really doing it for protection for them. They push it out to all the counties, and this is just the paperwork that they're catching up on that the counties use their equipment.
So kind of in summary, the state has some software that they're making available that.
Software and hardware, we've got devices on our network, and they've got more to come.
Okay.
But they push it out, and so far, no cost to any counties, as long as they keep getting their grants, there will be no cost.
And when we got the document, we forwarded it to the.
Yes, Carl looked at it, looked it over and
Okay.
said it's good to go.
Okay.
It's good to go.
Okay. Any other questions about the purpose of the document or the memorandum of understanding? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve this MOU, Memorandum of Understanding.
I'll second that motion.
okay, we have a motion by Armstrong, second by Herzberg. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for your work on that, Corey. I think we'll hold off on the 950. I'm not sure if Chris is going to be here to answer questions about the request for CARE dollars for some hardware at dispatch. So we'll hold off. I might text him and see, tell him we're probably a little bit ahead of schedule.
Chris, if you were planning on coming to answer questions about your request, the 950 item will be earlier. Probably be ready by 9:30.
All right. We'll take just a moment. We got our minutes from last week's meeting. Take a minute to read through those if you haven't yet, so that when we get to that, we can approve minutes. I haven't gotten all the way through them yet. And then we'll start our 9 o'clock discussion at 9 o'clock.
That needs signed.
Okay. Yeah.
Second page.
So I guess Chris is not going to be here. Melissa, did he talk with you about this specific dollar amount?
Quote was $1,136.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, $568 each.
So, what's in question here, these headsets, they have 3 terminals. They are actively using 2 at all times. Sometimes when traffic persists or dictates, they will run the 3rd terminal. The 3rd terminal's headset is broken. And they would like to obviously replace that and would like to have a spare on hand. So the CARES dollars, he believes, of course, Chris has been on the front end of all the paperwork with our CARES dollars. And he believes that under the CARES Act, purchase of those pieces of equipment would qualify. And he's looking to future CARES dollars, which we apply monthly. We have allocations or promise of allocations through the end of the year. So does anybody have any concern with utilizing CARES dollars that way?
Well, it sounded like he didn't have the money in his budget unless he used CARES money.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So that's the thing to do.
So would somebody like to make a motion to that effect, Alex?
There's no approval on the.
Oh, there is
discussion.
none. Okay, there is no approval in there. Okay. Well, let's get it on the agenda to get it approved next week. Yeah. To discuss it
In 2 weeks.
Or 2 weeks, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right, but I don't think we have any choice. There's nothing in the budget for it.
Right.
It's needed equipment. And the good thing is, once it's authorized, he can have it next day, so that would be great. All right. Well, it's close enough to 9 o'clock. It's 2 minutes before, and the guys we need in the room, I think, are all here now. So I'd like to introduce Greg Wild. Greg, I'll let you come to the microphone, introduce your CEO, and have you guys share that microphone if you don't mind, or could we utilize this microphone so that we can social distance? All right. Oh, you didn't have a handheld, did you? Another handheld? Okay. Well, we'll ask you guys to do you rode the car together. I think you're probably.
Yeah, we're safe.
Okay.
He's got it, I got it.
We've exposed each other enough already, so.
Okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Greg Wild. I'm with the Samuels Group. I'm a business development manager. I cover the state of Iowa and have had several discussions with the sheriff and a few others here in the county. One of our core strengths is detention centers. We have done detention centers, more than 20 in the last 15 years across Iowa and Wisconsin. You probably are scratching your head going, why in the world are we here today to talk about a jail? Well, the reason for that is that your jail was built, I believe, in 1934. It has had some issues in the recent past. And right now, I think if you would ask Sheriff Palmer and others in the department, that there are some challenges with that facility. The question becomes, do you put money into that facility or do you consider other options? The Samuels Group has a great track record of working with communities to address those kinds of questions and to help ask the questions and determine the answers that make the most sense for your community. We don't come in with a preconceived notion of what needs to happen or what needs to be the outcome, the result, but we do know what questions to ask. We also bring not only the assessment, the pre-construction, the estimating, the construction management, the entirety of the project. We also bring some real expertise in terms of pre-referendum help. Because once you identify what needs to be done, you owe it to the taxpayers and patrons of this community to share that with them and help them understand what the challenges are, what the answers become, and ultimately what the ask is to address those challenges and issues. So I will encourage you to speak with some of our previous and current customers. I brought a handout that I'll leave with you so that you can refer to some of that, what we have to tell you today. But instead of me handing it out and you reading along, I thought I would introduce you to Sid Samuels, who's the president of our firm, who can kind of walk you through why the Samuels Group might make sense for your project in terms of addressing your jail issues. So, Sid?
I think Greg was doing a pretty good job. He was getting a report card, so I'll make sure when I get back to the office. You know, some of the projects that we're working on here just in the state of Iowa. Include Guthrie County, which is probably very similar. It's just starting to break ground. It's a 32-bed jail, sheriff's department, and jail administration. It's in probably very similar in size of what your current capacities are, and will give you a pretty good idea of what they're doing over there. But we're working with Floyd County, Dallas County, Dubuque County. We've finished a project for Clinton County, so we're very familiar with Chapter 50 and the requirements that you're basically under by the Department of Corrections. Another crazy group we work with is the Department of Administrative Services. So we've been here in Clarinda, done about 20 projects out at the penitentiary. So we're very familiar with Clarinda. We have a staff that basically sit there and do quite a bit of work out there. But really, you know, looking at what's happened so far, we've had an opportunity to talk with your group a little bit, and really it starts with a feasibility. And it is the current facility meeting the requirements, not only from a structural perspective, but also from a code compliance? And what does that mean in regards to what the county is doing regarding Chapter 50 of the state code in regards to classifications in inmate health to just pure size, right? On top of the fact of what the facility is doing or not doing as far as its age. So looking at it, getting a pretty good idea of what that means, getting your hands around that, and being able to give you a pretty comprehensive report in regards to what potential deficiencies are there, really start educating you in regards to what's there and what may or may not be done and what your options are. And we do that with quite a few counties. We've been doing that for almost 30 years now. It's a specialty area that we really focus in on is county jail government in the corrections. Once you've done that, you know, what we have done is bring that information. We bring cost data associated to that as well. So if you were to stay where you're at and do some upgrades, what would that mean? All the way to an actual physical replacement, and giving you ideas of what those costs are so that you as a board supervisor have the opportunity to start making some educated decisions in regards to what the future is of the jail and the dynamics and the departments that are within it. And I understand that communications is a question here, and you guys have got that out independently. And what does that mean for you? And what does that mean from a staffing perspective? And what's the ongoing cost for that? So we have the people in-house that do that study work, provide you with that information so that you can make those decisions as to how you want to move forward. If you move forward, and what does that look like? Once you've done that, then it's time to go to a referendum, unless you have a bunch of money in the bank, and most counties don't. So having that opportunity to start educating the public and I think that's really where one of our strengths or how we stand out is we've conducted 3 referendums. We've passed them all. The last one we passed at Guthrie County was the first time. We passed that at a margin of 80%. So it's really about going out and educating the public so that they're aware of why it's happening, what the need is, what the cost is, what the tax implications are, and just getting the right team of people around so that, again, they're being informed and you're making the right choices. And then from there, it's getting it designed and getting it constructed. And I always say that's the easier part because leading up to that is a lot of education and helping the public understand what the true needs are. And jails aren't always the most popular thing to go out and ask dollars for. So with that said, we're really, we're more interested in hearing what questions you may have as you start your journey down this road, and there's things that we can do to help you out.
Great, thank you. Just a quick summary. Back, I think in February was the first time that Lyle put together a meeting with Charles and Tony and myself, and I think Greg was at that first meeting. We met one other time with you there. And then COVID kind of got into the way, but certainly the communications piece is an area where I think we have a real need for some guidance because what do you build if you do build a new jail? I think the time spent with Tony was very educational about how the code impacts the size and the classifications. Most people on the street don't understand that and want a bare bones jail that you can't meet code requirements. The other piece that I thought was interesting, some of the side discussions about the questions that persist that really impact what you do with regard to a jail. Questions such as, where do you locate a new jail? Do you put the 911 center inside that jail? Do you not? That question is on the table. Then you also have what's going on around us with the constriction of courts. And it's been less aggressive in the last year, I think in large part due to COVID, but the previous 18 months prior to that, there was a clear movement toward consolidating some courts. And if that happens, what impact does that have on the jail? So having some expertise, and I know Lyle, if you'd like to comment, you kind of started the discussion with Samuel's group. You've been watching jail construction for a number of years. You've looked at what's happened around us. And I think in this case, we're probably in better shape, not being the first. We've been able to watch a lot of activity. And Lyle, I don't know if you'd like to talk about how you got involved with the Samuels group and why you brought them to the table.
The Samuels group is
I predicted you to Mike, I'm sorry.
Samuels group is a very educated, classy organization or business, as you would speak. They do a great job in looking at what we need first to make sure that there's not something we can do with the current facility. And then they compare what the costs are and where we're at 10, 15, 20 years down the road. It's something that I'm very adamant about because to me, a jail is to be, first of all, safe for our staff. That's one of the most important things. And right now, as you can see from the past jail inspections every year since I've been here, and previous, we do the best we can with what we have. I think the time has come to look into this very seriously and move forward with something because, as we all know, costs just keep increasing on what it costs to build a jail, if that's what it comes to, or even to remodel the current facility we have. Samuels have been a great, reputable company. They look into things, talking with other sheriffs that they work with. They're there for you no matter when or what you have. They educate the communities, the county, on what it's going to cost, what your increase might be in your taxes, and down the road, what the life of the facility is. I mean, we're looking at a 1936 facility right now. Correct, Tony?
Somewhere in the early 30s. I've got some conflicting data at the office.
We go from 33 to 36. Evidently, the record keeping wasn't the greatest back then. we're in need of one. This is one of those things that we have looked at the different counties surrounding us as well as across the state on what they would and wouldn't do again. Montgomery County, Mills, Fremont, even Taylor County, Adams County. Some of those, they're talking about Guthrie County, they just got that passed, and they will be overseeing that project. It's a tough decision because, like I said, first of all, I want that safe for our staff and for the staff to come in the future. We have to make it safe for our inmates. We have to make it so that we can isolate, have smaller groups together. You seem to have less problems when you have smaller groups together, or pods as they call them. We need to really consider that when we're looking at that. It may be a bigger footprint, but it's something that we need. Handicap accessibility. We've carried people up and down those stairs in wheelchairs, and that's not good for them, and it's not good for us. We have a lot of needs that need to be met, and that's something that I'm very concerned about. Second, or third, I guess now we're at appearance. I am not a frills person. Those of you that know me know that I am not a frills person. I want this jail to be, first of all, functional, safe, but it doesn't need to be some architect's dream. I've seen that. There's problems that arise with that when it happens. Taylor County is a good example of that. They have a good jail. They have some things that I know Josh would like to see a little different here and there, but we can learn from that. And that's something that we'll work with Samuel's group and they'll work with us about, as well as the steering committee or whatever is in charge of this at that point. We have to really take a look at where we're going to be in the future and decide. But this is a company that I'm very happy with, talking with other sheriffs and other people that have worked with them and talking with them. They're there to work for us and do the best they can to educate the public, as well as look at what the options are for us. Whether it is a bond down the road for a new facility, or whether there's something we could do to our facility.
Okay, thank you, Lyle. So what, there are a lot of questions on the table. We haven't built a jail, obviously, since 1933 or 36.
Yeah.
So where do you start? I mean, what's your recommendation? How do you even begin the journey?
Great question.
Well, it really starts at evaluating what you currently have. And some people say, well, we're gonna build no matter what. Well, there's a part of the public that probably doesn't agree with that statement. And so completely understanding what you have today and understanding what that need is with the current conditions is really where it starts. So excuse me. So evaluating the existing facility in determining what its strengths are, what its challenges are, understanding what it's going to take to make it work with what's required by Chapter 50. And as long as you see me here, you will hear that Chapter 50 a number of times, and they live with it every single day. And as a county, you have to as well, because there are things that are being dictated as far as what you have, your requirements of what you have to provide, right? And it's ever changing. So understanding that Chapter 50 and comparing that of what you have a facility that's done a good job of, if it's lasted since the 30s, it doesn't owe you $1, right? So what does that mean though moving forward, and what are the challenges that you're facing? And you're hearing some of that from the sheriff now. So you're kind of hearing what the needs are out there. So evaluating the existing facility and coming up with a plan of what that means.
I just wonder if spending any time even giving thought to bringing the old facility up to date, if that's money well spent. I mean, if that's what you're suggesting.
I'm not talking thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm talking evaluating the facility, even if it's a walkthrough, and saying, listen, we have handicap issues. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. We have handicap issues that we're dealing with. We're having classification issues. It's helping, it's doing your homework so that when you talk with the public and you're sitting out in one of those meetings and this little lady comes up and says, why are you spending my money? This is why we need to spend some money. and this is how it's graded. This is what it costs. And here's all the detail. And the more, I think that's where our success has been, is showing the details and being prepared to talk to those details. I'll use an example. We were, for Guthrie County, we were in, I think it was Britt, Iowa. One of the farmers came in and said, I understand your projections of what my taxes should be, but I brought my taxes with me tonight. And before you leave, I want to know what my taxes are going to be. And so we sat down there after the meeting and went through his taxes. And so I think it's a matter of educating these people so they understand there's truly a need and what's the true impact. Because when we did Guthrie County, and the sentiment was, we're not building it big enough. We need to build it bigger. It's like, no, we're going to build it for what we need, and this is why we need what we need. But at the end of the day, that was more of what we heard than we shouldn't build something. So again, I would encourage you to talk to some of the counties that we've worked with and talk about those items. Every project has challenges, whether it's at the very beginning or at the end. And how does a company respond? I think that's the character of what they are. But most importantly is, what are we doing so that we can create a facility to meet the challenges that are expected of the county? 2 classifications I believe you're at right now, and the minimum is 5. And I always say classifications are like pie, and we cut them up. And when somebody comes to our facility and they're being booked, we now have to hold them for a period of time. We have all of these regulations that we have to follow by the Department of Corrections. And if we can't follow and provide the necessary facility, then that person has to leave. And there's a cost associated to transportation. There's a cost associated to the hotel that they get to go stay in, right? But more importantly is, as a county, our job is to provide public safety. And when a deputy is traveling across the state to transport inmates, they're not doing what their primary purpose is, and that's to take care of the public, right? And I think people lose sight of that sometimes because it's the quiet thing that happens. And so educating people so they understand what's really going on, what the cost impact is today, and if we continue to do what we're doing today, what challenges are there and what's the cost implications versus doing something about it, and what's the cost implications to that. And again, I think it's just a matter of educating, and it starts with educating ourselves, and then educating you, and then educating the public. And it's a step process. And if you choose to move forward, great. If you don't, you don't. And each step has a cost associated to it, and we identify those costs before you agree to anything. And we take each step, and if you decide to continue on, you know what those costs are. If you don't, there are no more costs. So it's really how we operate. We're a pretty transparent group. Our goal is to determine, I can use Dubuque County as an example. The sheriff is gung-ho on I'll pick on him, he's not here. What he really wanted, the flow of his jail wasn't working. And in order to make it work, they came up with a $25 million plan. The reality was the board of supervisors weren't going to spend $25 million on a plan. And so we started looking at alternatives. Right now, they're looking at a $700,000 plan. So we're not there. We're not here to build a $25 million facility. Just like we weren't in Dubuque, we were looking for solutions. And one of the solutions is $700,000 for them today. But they have a master plan of what they're stepping into. They understand by spending $700,000 today, it can save them money in staff positions, which pays for itself, and allows them not to have to change that in the future when they go to take next steps to construct the rest of the facility. So I think that's smart planning, and it's spending money prudently, right? And right now, talk about costs, they're always going up. It's inflation, right? And in this world, especially now, we still are seeing it. It's going to continue. The benefits we have today, Guthrie County just experienced this when they went out to sell their bonds. And the rate at which bonds are being sold right now and the interest rates on those. This is a great opportunity or a great time for a lot of counties to be able to go out and borrow dollars because they're borrowing at historical lows. And so we see a lot of clients that are looking at that and are getting more aggressive towards that because they want to take advantage of the low interest.
All right, so you brought us some material to read, and then, we can read through that. Then, if we wanted to engage you, would you be willing to prepare a proposal?
We would, yeah. Absolutely. Yep. And what we would do in our proposal is kind of soup to nuts. We put them all in there and put costs associated to each of those steps so that you'll understand that your first step is whatever dollar that amount is. If you choose to move forward, you've got a good idea of what that means for each step. And then we just evaluate it as we go. And then before we take the next step, you vote to approve it. If you don't, then we don't go any further.
Okay. Excellent. Well, then, our assignment is to read this in the next 2 weeks and put on the agenda discussion of questions that we would have for the Sandals group, and then get another meeting with you once we have those questions answered, and then maybe be able to, based on those questions, your answers, be able to look at a proposal for moving forward. That'd be great.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you
Yeah,
for
appreciate it.
consideration. Nice to meet everyone.
What was the approximate cost of that?
Guthrie right now without contingencies about 9.2 million. And that includes 32 beds, includes jail administration, and includes the sheriffs. And that is an actual addition onto their existing courthouse. So everything's independent, but it is considered an addition. Dispatch is because of the, yeah. So when we get down that road, in Guthrie County, dispatch is also part of the control center. So the way that particular jail is designed, they're utilizing dispatch, and they're utilizing dispatch as control center as well. They have actually 2 controls.
I know this group and the sheriff's group and the dispatch group have had some conversations about where that goes, and those conversations will continue. We're blessed that we have 3 options, really. We could probably stay where we're at for quite some time. We have an annex that we purchased at under $9 a square foot that could be renovated perhaps for dispatch. There are other counties. Cass County does utilize dispatch, but the key ingredient is having the discussions to see operationally what is best for public safety and for efficiencies without giving way to putting anybody at risk. And I know that's been one of our concerns about dispatch being in with the sheriff's building. One is the additional cost of space, but one is also with constricting budgets. Operationally, is there enough to gain to overcome the desire to multitask a dispatcher / jailer to put anybody, whether it be a prisoner, a staff member, an officer, or a member of the taxpaying public at risk because we're trying to do too much with a limited staff?
I think when we get to that point and start talking about staff and talking about locations, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it in small counties. I've seen it in larger counties. I think it becomes more of an operational. You can look at your cost comparisons and make those determinations as we start looking at staffing models. If you build a new facility, what does that mean and what does it take? Because that's the gift that keeps taking, right? If we need to hire staff, that's an ongoing cost above and beyond the capital. So understanding the efficiencies of that and having that as a discussion, I think is a viable discussion. It could be you stay where you're at, but you build in your control room the ability to do dispatch down the road if you choose to. We can look at those models when the time comes in regards to what's doing, and we can give you our opinions, because the expertise really comes with the sheriff's department and with dispatch and understanding what they're dealing with every day, right? We're not, but we can definitely show you what we're seeing.
Well, you can give us a perspective of what's being done in many other locales.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, thank you.
All right, time for public comment. Anybody wish to make public comment at this time?
Over here. Yep,
Oh,
just
come on
right
up.
up there.
Before I begin my official time, I was wondering if I may ask to read the entirety of a statement that I had prepared, especially given
The time parameters, was
Yeah.
it, it's not like, waiting for Godot, it's a 20-minute deal, is it?
No, last night when I went through it, it was about 10 to 12 minutes. I'd be a little longer. I wasn't dry-throated and nervous last night, but I think 15 minutes would more than suffice.
That'd be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Tracy Grossamy. My family and I live northwest of Clarinda on a small acreage near Emmanuel Lutheran Church. This is entirely out of my comfort zone. And so I apologize for any flumbles that I might make, or like that. I have become increasingly alarmed throughout the past year as I have watched the issue and debate over industrial wind turbines unfold in our county. What started in my mind as just an eyesore and annoyance to the beauty of nature has evolved into a matter of utmost concern as I have researched and listened to testimony after testimony from people forced to live in the footprint of these huge industrial machines. It is not my intention to get nasty or to go into attack mode at all. I pray I have the focus to stay respectful and yet carefully articulate my concerns. And I thank you for the opportunity to read the entirety of my statement. Though I hate to stand here and read my comments, I want to stay focused, and I would hate to risk becoming emotional because though I may display emotion, as all three of you and many others have throughout the dealings with this issue, my concerns are far from simply emotionally based. Though I don't know any of you personally, I have no doubt that you are kind men. I assume that you are husbands, fathers, even grandfathers. I also assume that you are not in danger of living anywhere close to 1,500 feet from one of these turbines. I don't feel that you started this journey to be malicious or to harm people in any fashion. I feel that more than likely you made a decision based on potential for monetary gain for our county, and that can be a great thing. I feel in many ways, though, as things have played out over the last year, that this has been done in less than honorable and upfront ways. You see, I'm a questioner. I need to see facts from all sides to make an informed decision based on my deep commitment to logic and truth. I believe strongly that in most cases, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And too often in today's world, if something sounds too good to be true, there's probably someone with a lot of money and power trying to swing a golden carrot in some poor donkey's face and hide the real cost of the bite of that carrot. I don't bring this up to bore you, but instead to explain why so many of these issues and the way they have been handled has bothered me so severely. The following are a few examples of things that have caused red flag questions for me throughout this process. Number one, the timing of the ordinance versus the public meetings to discuss it. You somewhat quietly passed an ordinance last October that would drastically affect many people in this county. You held two public meetings over a month later during the busiest month of the year for the public to express their concerns and ask questions. This was done after the fact. Why? Didn't you care what the public had to say about such a big issue that would drastically affect them? If so, shouldn't you have asked to hear the voices of your constituents before you passed the ordinance instead of after? At those meetings, a paid employee and possibly two of a wind company attended, and questions were directed thereto for expert answer and opinion. Was there equal representation of experts from the other side of the debate at those meetings? Or was this representative, whose livelihood comes from the billion-dollar corporations, your only expert questions were directed to? Number two, after you saw and heard from so many at those meetings, did it not occur to you that maybe there were many more of those whom you have sworn to represent with such concerns? It was, after all, December, a month packed full with festive activities. Why were requests for additional, better timed, better publicized meetings ignored? If there was nothing to hide and you were as neutral as you claim to be, what would the harm be in giving as many residents as possible, particularly those that would be affected by living in the footprints of turbines, ample opportunity to be listened to? Number 3, upon hearing so many complaints and concerns about the setbacks, why have you remained unwilling to make adjustments to the ordinance? Why haven't the concerns of those that have had the opportunity to speak been reflected in changes to the ordinance that you said were easily amended? And Mr. Armstrong, that you were quoted in September as saying was an issue that we needed to, and I quote, work towards a compromise that is acceptable to all as we fine tune the ordinance. Why then, Mr. Morris, did you speak for your fellow supervisors a month earlier than Mr. Armstrong's above mentioned comments when you told my husband the current Board of Supervisors is not going to change the ordinance? In my analysis, things don't always seem to line up. Instances like this have led to much emotion from concerned citizens because they feel ignored and lied to. As far as the ordinance goes, you have claimed repeatedly that you have protected the county because we had nothing in place before the ordinance. You listed 3 key details of the ordinance in your article: the setbacks, the noise level, and the decommissioning process. As far as the decommissioning process goes, I commend you for being proactive in this area, and that is where your statement of protection does truly apply. However, it is quite untrue about the other 2/3 of key issues in the ordinance, which is where I, as well as many other citizens, have grave concerns. The truth is, we already had an ordinance that you nullified in the process of enacting the current ordinance. That ordinance specified that all noise, vibration, and unusual light be imperceivable and or unnoticeable at the boundary of the property involved. Why have you been misleading the public, telling them there was no protection when we actually had a fair protection? Number 5, these lines of questionings and reasoning unfortunately lead me to another line of questioning and reasoning. Are our supervisors truly as neutral as they claim to be? Could big money powers be working secretly behind the scenes? Did you, out of your own accord and goodness of your hearts, seeing other counties in the area establish wind farms, decide to write an ordinance? Or were you helped and encouraged by those that would have much to gain? After all, the members of last month's educational forum had glowing remarks for your efforts with the ordinance. Gentlemen, I do hate to make these implications, but you must understand that it seems quite contradictory when you claim, even in the front page news article, that you are impartial and only looking to protect your citizens. Number 6, every argument has 2 sides. In a fair and honest debate, both sides should be given an equal voice. What tends to happen instead is that the side with the most money and power silences the one with less. This causes me to ask, why has one side of the argument been given a government-endorsed, media-promoted voice? It was stated in the Herald Journal article that residents need to weigh both the positives and negatives. Yet there has been a group asking since last winter for a non-biased informational meeting with experts and those with firsthand experience on both sides of the argument to be held so that citizens of Page County could hear both sides of the debate. Why are you unwilling to do that? Instead, a group of concerned citizens had to invest hundreds of hours of research and hundreds of dollars of personal funds during an already difficult year to print resources and host a meeting to get some of the silenced information out there, while employees of the multi-billion-dollar corporations whom are paid to promote wind were given a government-funded, hosted, and approved opportunity to speak without interruption or question for 1 hour, and then their platform posted as the only information regarding turbines on the public website. Did you notice that all the experts in your educational forum received financial gain, either directly or indirectly from wind energy? And yet I think it would be safe to assume that none of them are living within the footprints of the towers. Does that not seem, and I quote you, Mr. Morris, as a presentation with a particular bias? Do you not see how one could think that their research could have maybe, shall we say, been influenced? Speaking of research leads me to my 7th line of questioning. It was stated in your article that the ordinance was approved based on the results of research. What research? In the educational forum that you posted on as the only wind information on your website, The wind companies basically claim that there is no reliable research to substantiate the negative side of the article. You yourselves have chalked our arguments up to emotion in an effort to discredit them. We have found hundreds of articles on a multitude of issues tied to the debate, some from a research fact base and some from firsthand experiences, and presented many of them to you. Have you read them? How many people living within less than 2,000 feet from a turbine have you visited? How many people with negative experiences, not billion-dollar interests, have you interacted with? Do you plan to visit and ask questions near the Burlington Junction, Missouri tower that reportedly lost a blade yesterday? Or the area around the turbine near Westboro, Missouri, that also just south of your represented area that has apparently burnt up and covered the turbine and ground around it with oil? And as a side note, what is that much oil doing in something that is supposed to be green and getting us away from the use of resources such as oil? Mr. Herzberg, in the article in the paper, you stated, I have never noticed that the noise being that bad. The wording of that statement seems to imply that you have taken ongoing action in the past. It would seem to imply that you have visited several farms with several different factors, including things such as buildings that would cause noise to reverberate differently and many different wind and weather conditions, and that you have done so over the course of many days at minimum, if not weeks, months, or even years. Yet in the same context, you stated that you visited a farm last spring with few houses in the area. That seems contradictory. I in no way mean to be nitpicky. I am sure many of my words have the opportunity to be taken out of context, and I am not intending to do that with yours. However, as public officials, your words and their implications, especially in front page articles that have passed the editing process, are weighty. It was also stated that you visited the area last spring to evaluate the amount of sound created by the turbines. Do you have expertise and equipment to aid you in making this determination, or was it merely an unbiased opinion? Again, sir, your words matter a great deal. I have presented many questions that have plagued my mind over the last several months. I understand that I will never be given enough time to get all the answers to all of these questions, and that is not my intention here. My intention is to present a picture of the few logical questions that have been conjured up in my mind throughout this process and have led me to doubt the integrity of the approach as well as the neutrality of this board. There are a few questions that I, as a constituent that you represent, would like to have answered though. I would like to know how many people with negative experience in the arena of wind turbine difficulties you have talked to. I would like to know if you have talked to multiple people who live approximately 1,500 feet from wind turbines. You have said that the August meeting, which was hosted and funded by private citizens, was adequate for that side of the issue. And yet now you say you are unsure as to whether it can be uploaded to your website, since it is not a government endorsed and hosted video. Since you have publicly stated that you are neutral in the debate and that you think it's, quote, important for people to hear every side of every story, and that you have stated, quote, that you agree that residents need to weigh both the positives and negatives in order to make an informed decision on the matter, are you willing to do an educational 1-hour forum with experts on the other side of the fence and those with personal negative experience, as you did for the pro-wind proponents? Would you be willing to invite research and personal testimony from those who feel setbacks should be farther than 1,500 feet and ask them the same line of questioning those with financial ties to wind were asked? And if so, when can we expect this equal representation to take place? Gentlemen, I thank you for your time. Again, I do really, I thank you for allowing me to read the entirety of my comments. Again, I assume that you are all wonderful men, and it is very hard for me to stand confrontationally in front of anyone. I highly respect the elected officials that we have. And while I do not claim to be an expert of any sort, I am a questioner. And being a questioner, there have been many things that I do not feel has lined up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wendy.
Tracy.
Called you.
It's Tracy, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I called you Wendy. Any other public comment?
Good morning.
Morning.
You're safe today. You see I didn't bring a piece of paper up with me. But I was just following up, last week I had asked about hosting our meeting or uploading it to the website. I was told that you were going to get back with me, and
Yeah, and I'm,
here I have to stand.
yeah, and I have not gotten back with you. I did speak with, right after the meeting, I spoke with Carl, our attorney, and Jim, our assistant attorney. They ran an email to their contact at the Attorney General's office, and their opinion was that it was not a government-sponsored event. And so what would happen if we put that on there in their view, in their legal view, is that if Allen's Restaurant wanted to post a menu, we'd have no course. I mean, that was what they said. And I would encourage you to talk with Carl, but they said no.
Okay, and that's what I figured the answer was going to be anyway. So I guess like Tracy had asked, are you guys going to host a panel of 5 hour-long on the other side of the wind issue that can be uploaded that you guys put on?
I'm not opposed to doing it.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you off. I'm not opposed to having that form. Now,
And the same questions can be asked, I think it should be the exact same questions that were asked to the salesmen, ask, a panel of 5 on the other side. And I think timing is key here. I don't think it's something that we'll think about it in 6 months down the road. I think it's crucial that it's, your other forum has been public for 3 weeks now, or however long the timing has been.
I will say, and I can't, I would ask you to contact KMA to get the exact time, but I believe it's tomorrow morning. They conducted a 45-minute semi-debate between the individual who's responsible for the Facebook presence, I can't think of the lady's name.
I've heard that.
And they did a Zoom, and it's going to.
I understand that.
And then it's kind of a debate between the pro and the anti-wind. It's 45 minutes long. Not to deflect, I'm not opposed to having, a group of people that oppose wind. We put their opinions out.
I mean, there's doctors, health experts that can talk about, different known side effects, things like that. I think a panel, an equal panel of professionals or a multitude of professionals and people that have lived amongst them. An hour-long debate just like you did. Again, I know you said KMA is doing one, but as the leaders of the county, supposedly to have an unbiased opinion, both sides need to be addressed and looked at in an equal amount of time. Okay, thank you.
Morning, Jesse.
Hi, Jesse Simpson here. Just to kind of add on to that, I think it would be really important to maybe have that before the election, which I think would be hard to probably get those people guys. I don't know if that's possible, but because you perfectly timed your meeting right before the election or with those guys. And so you got it up on your site so that people could look at it and then be, oh yeah, we need to have turbines. And so now we're left with 1 week and you're making excuses not to have public, have you guys run a meeting for the opposite side. Is that fair? I mean, can you look at me in the face and say that's fair?
I said I'd be open to a meeting, to hosting.
So why do you guys decide now, right now, while we're here to do that?
We can't sell on the agenda. This is public comment. We can't make that decision.
Well, I'm getting emotional, so I'm gonna sit down. It's terrible, guys.
What's terrible, Jesse? I mean, we don't have
The lopsided, things have been lopsided for a year. I grew up in Southeast Page. I want to build a house there. I may not now.
Yeah.
I would like to do the same and follow up with your guys' Zoom meeting. I want to know if you guys, I can't recall the guy's name and I do not want to go back and watch it. But there was a guy on there that you asked him about citizens moving out of the county. And he said on your Zoom that if they don't like it, let them move out. Let your citizens move out. We got people that don't like to live around cornfields, which I've never heard anybody complain about a cornfield, but were you guys proud of a billion-dollar company coming in and telling your citizens over a Zoom meeting to move out if they don't like it? I was really waiting during that meeting for one of you three to pipe up and say, whoa, wait a minute, we don't want our citizens moving out. But instead, it was silence, and there was a little chuckle from you, and you went on to the next question. That's disheartening to me. Very disheartening to me. You guys also asked the guy a question about Adair County, the population after the wind turbines. And he came on and told us the boom while the wind turbines were going up in the county, how their motels were overran with people, their parks, their tourism, but he never once said about the population after the turbines have gone up and been going. And that was the question that was asked. I also want to state that there were no way for any public to ask comments during that Zoom meeting. But I guess I would like to go back. Were you guys proud of the guy that said your citizens can just go ahead and move out if they don't like it? I find it criminal for them to say that there are no health effects. Do you guys agree that there are no health effects with wind turbines by the research that you have done?
I'm not a health expert, Ashley, and I think that there are the Lamb family that came to the fairground meeting. I think they're very sincere people. They have talked about ill health effects. I don't doubt their sincerity.
I guess there's tons of research out there. There's tons of people you can talk to that are living around them that are having health effects. There's doctors that are treating health effects out there. I guess the reason I find that criminal is I can say getting in a car, there's no health effects, but the next person next to me, like my sister, for instance, she gets car sickness. I don't experience that. So for me to say there's no health effect for me getting in a vehicle is quite criminal when the next person getting on a boat, people get motion sickness. I don't experience that. I have no clue what they're talking about. So it's kind of criminal for me to say that going to my job, I can say there's no health effects for me, but the next person can get cancer from the chemical that she's using every day. There's a health effect to everything we do in life. Everything we put into, there's a health effect.
Actually, I'd just like to say our Board of Public Health, which I highly respect, we have people in the health profession. They looked at the issue over at least a 2-month period, maybe a little bit longer. And their response to their study was that they found no, I'll misquote it if I try to say it from memory. But you go back through their minutes on what their response was to their study. You've got a CEO of a hospital, you've got a midwife, you've got a registered a medical doctor, an MD, you've got someone with a physical therapy background, home health, and somebody else in there with a fitness degree. So, I mean, they're far more equipped to make a determination than any of us guys in terms of health. They studied it from a different point of view than any of us would have the capability. So, I mean, to me, that carries a lot of weight. I'm not saying that somebody doesn't have a problem. I can't make that statement. I'm sure there are people that have difficulties.
but I do know there are people that live by them without difficulties too, just to your point.
It's, yeah, to my point, exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. And you go back to Mike and Tanya Lehman, that's just one example. I mean, you can drive around and there's tons of people. They're actually just on a Page County Citizens page. This week, there was a guy from Illinois that wrote on it that said him and his wife had to abandon their home because of the health effects that they were experiencing. So I think there's tons of research out there. There's tons of people that are living it that are having the health effects. So to say that there are absolutely none, I think is a little criminal. You also, Chuck, you've stood down in the courthouse grass yards and told, you know, that the blades don't break that often. Well, just in the past 2 months, there's been 2 in Iowa, 2 in Illinois, 1 in Nebraska, and 3 in Missouri. That's concerning what you guys are, you know, you state at the beginning of your ordinance that our health and our public safety is in your guys' first and utmost concern. And I know that my husband stood up here and asked you guys if you had ever visited anybody that lived 1,500 foot from a turbine, if you've ever spent a quality of time with them. I know, Alan, you were very truthful and said you had not. John, you kind of fished around, and Chuck said you had, but then when you had called my husband with the people, you said it was just people you had talked to. And so it wasn't really people that you had went to their home.
I've gone to their home, and actually, okay, I've gone to their home, I've done the study, and to try to get into,
No, thank you for clarifying. I'm not getting into anything. Thank you for clarifying. I was just quoting you, and thank you very much for clarifying that. So, and I guess I'm with these guys of saying that, you know, you guys keep coming out with articles on KMA, on the newspaper, saying how much you're protecting us, when you had an ordinance that protected all of us in 97. And then your lawyer last Tuesday at this meeting got up here and called your ordinance a wind turbine ordinance that you have in play. He read it, them were the words he stated at the beginning of it.
it is, it's a wind turbine ordinance. I mean, it's a wind ordinance to regulate the production of wind.
So why did you guys just get rid of the ordinance that protected the whole county and still could have let wind in fairly, but it would have let neighbors work together and the county work together?
Well, there was no decommissioning for one. There were other reasons that I don't care to, you know, spend the time. We're kind of a 5-minute period here. We've had those discussions. You know, we're not going to agree on that point. It's very clear that we're not going to agree on that point.
I guess I'm with Jesse that I have lived here my whole life. My parents have lived here their whole lives. My grandpa was 91 years old and lived here his whole life. I started coming to these meetings a year ago thinking that I live in Page County. I'm proud to live here. These guys are going to represent us equally. They're going to listen. And I've been coming here for a year and done nothing but been shut down. And you guys will not represent both sides of the party. And that is very, very disheartening for me, for somebody that's lived here my whole life. So thank you for your time.
Any other public comment? I would like to state that wind in Page County or Ida County or Guthrie County, no wind is developed anywhere in Iowa or anywhere in the United States without land lease agreements between landowners and wind interest. And there are property rights that have been discussed at great length in this county, but certainly the position that this board has taken consistently throughout this process, it has been that there is no wind developed without land lease agreements. So those folks who own property, who wish to develop wind, should have a right to do that. What we've asked opponents of wind to do consistently since last winter is show us any development of wind in the state of Iowa that has either setbacks greater than ours or setbacks that are tied to property lines, because those were the initial concerns that were expressed as being opposed to wind. We've asked for that. We have not been able to find it because it doesn't exist. There are no active wind developments in the state of Iowa tied to property lines with setbacks or greater in length than ours. So, should this board deny the rights of people who have signed land lease agreements for whatever reason to the opportunity to participate in something on their land? That's the question that we've asked. And I've said from day one, the board has stated from day one, that if there's a way to compromise greater on setbacks, let's find it. It doesn't exist in an active wind development. You have Gage County, Nebraska has been cited recently of setting back setbacks to 1 mile or 2 miles. Those are moratoriums. Wind is no longer developed. So people holding lease agreements with wind companies now don't have the income, don't have the ability to participate in an activity that they chose to participate in. Those are the material facts of property rights. And we've been accused of not being fair. I understand that. We've done the best we can. And the fact that 61 counties in Iowa are actively producing wind, yes, there are problems. Blades fall off occasionally, yes. But out of 5,500 turbines in Iowa, it's not, we try to make a big deal, I think, out of things that occasionally go wrong. Has anybody been hurt in those blades that have gone down? Fortunately not, because they're set back. So again, everybody certainly can have whatever opinion they want, and that's great. Yeah.
I don't care what in the world you're building. I've said this 100 times. I didn't come up with 1,500 feet. I'm not saying 5 miles, a mile. You say we can't try it to property line because no other county in Iowa has done that, right?
Where it's active.
Where it's active, oh, active, right. Whatever investment scheme is active, right? Okay. Why in the world are you hindering somebody else's property rights if they don't have enough land to house their investment? There's a lot of things I'd like to build. 1,500 feet is not a mile. It's a little over a quarter mile.
Right.
And it's the company themselves has their own liability setbacks of basically that. All that has been asked repeatedly by a lot of people in this deal is to just put it to the property line. The ordinance is written where anybody, whether being a participant or non-participant, can waive that right. You're not stopping anyone from giving up your setback that you put in place.
Jacob,
So I'm gonna finish, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I went on the radio forever, I can't talk endlessly, but I wanna finish this. There is no way that this is right, because it doesn't have anything to do with wind. It's about anything that has liability, like I've said, that should not be allowed to cross unless you choose to let it cross. And you are not harming somebody else who wants one. I don't blame somebody for wanting one. But there's a lot of things I'd like to do I don't have enough land for. If you don't have enough land, then your neighbor needs to sell, or if not, he's giving up something too. And you say nobody's been harmed or whatever. If they can be built 600, if it's 600 foot tall turbine, it's 660 feet from the property line. We've all said 1,500 feet is fair from a home. We agree that's our fair from a home. Well, you've taken 900 and some feet from somebody's property where they lost some property rights there without any pay or compensation. Y'all know that, I've said it 100 times. I don't care what you're building if it has liability. Let's lead. How about let's lead in Page County? Let's show some other counties. Well, shoot, they did something pretty smart. They allowed everybody to come to the table. Maybe the supervisors, when everybody's so irritated at them, if they sold the right. The turbine company could go out and talk to the neighbors then and say, would you like to sell? Would you like to sell this? We're gonna put a 600 foot fence. Would you like to sell this 900 foot of loss you're gonna have? You're right, you're not gonna build there anymore. Would you like to? And a lot of people are probably gonna say, well, if it's the right price, I probably would, because I won't build there now. And guess what? You all win. Everybody wins, nobody's mad. What is wrong with that? What is irrational about that?
Well, I don't think it's irrational at all, except that if you ask the wind companies if they would engage landowners from that point of view, they say no, they're gonna move on.
Have you ever dealt with a salesman? Have you ever bought a car? Have you ever anything? When you go to the salesman, what are they gonna tell you? If you say, would you still come? Guys, no, we won't. You leave it all in our favor or we won't come. What do you think in a negotiation happens? If they want to come,
But the
they will come.
negotiation isn't between the county.
With the ordinance it is, and you are setting the parameters what will cost them. The way it is right now is a lot cheaper for them. So yeah, they go path of least resistance, yes. But I thought the job of the supervisor was to evenly represent and protect everyone. I don't understand how this keeping it easy for them to come is the fair way to do it. Make it right, and if they come, they come. They'll come right. And people won't be mad at you or their neighbor. They'll work it out. There's a lot of people who don't have enough land to do great big things. And they might buy more land, or they might not be able to do it, and they're not irritated because that's the way it's always been. It's the way it is. I don't believe this is irrational. I believe it takes a lot of heat off of you to look at it, do a step back, and not go to the salesman for all of your, well, they're not gonna come if we don't do it. Is that irrational?
No.
Can people sell their right? Could they give up any setback you make? You can make 5 miles, they can give it up. I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying, can they give up the setback you pass? Can they?
Well, I guess I don't understand. We were trying to protect you
Well,
with this ordinance.
So the
and
problem,
the county.
okay,
And maybe we should have just left it alone and let every farmer decide. Then you wouldn't have any rights.
well,
And you have no,
You would have nothing.
well, with
I guess I don't get it.
well, the 97 ordinance, John, I have read, I'm not a lawyer, like Tracy quoted, is inaudible from the edge of the property of what's zoned industrial. So their little acre around the turbine or whatever they zone industrial, it'd have to be inaudible, John. And there have to be a certified letter sent out to every single adjoining landowner, if I read it correctly, letting them know that something is even being thought about. There'd have to be a hearing for every single turbine. Is that, the 90, it was stood in place, I don't think you're hearing it for 20 some years. Well, it'd be something to read. And then also, I can't remember all the different parts of it. There couldn't be anything.
I believe, not to interrupt, but I believe the one that was written in 8 or, I can't remember the number of the year without pulling up the ordinances, but there was one written regarding wind after that I believe would have negated the 97 one, Jacob.
So they negated it.
I think we need to look at that a little deeper, but that was the impression back when we started this all back a year and a half ago. Discussion was, there was follow-up because wind was becoming to the area or a possibility, and that's when the Board of Supervisors wrote that next ordinance.
So if you wrote one and it's supposed to protect us, what is wrong with the property line? You say they won't come. Well, I doubt that. And if you can sell the right, why is that a problem? If you can give it up, anybody can give it up. You could give it up, I could give it up. There's a lot of people that have signed up that are kind of, they don't want to give it up because if it's on their own farm, they like the protection you gave them in that way that they can't go any closer than that if they haven't already negotiated a deal. So if you did protect us, what is wrong with looking at the property line? The salesman, what they say does not bear weight in that they won't come. I mean, they're going to tell you that, just like any negotiation. I don't understand. I really thought you guys got that, understood that a year ago. And I really don't know why. So simple as that is not being ugly or irrational, I don't think. Because it doesn't matter what they're building. They're the ones claiming there's liability. You're agreeing there's liability. You did a wind ordinance. It's just something to think about here. You're only protecting the people that want to protect it. The people that don't will give it up or sell it.
well, appreciate your comments. The fact of the matter is there are no projects that have been approved. So when you're elected here in a week, if you're elected, you can sit here and you can, further move on that and talk more than you've talked with the wind companies and say, I don't believe you. I think that we're gonna tell you that this is the way it's gonna be. So.
I'll try to represent everyone. I'll tell you that.
Any other comments? All right. Thank you for your comments. And let's go to the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve our minutes?
From
Last week.
October 20th, yes. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Armstrong, second by Hersberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.